My name is Carl Azus, and you've landed on CNN 10, your objective source for news in 10 minutes. We're so happy to have you watching this Thursday. Last night was another debate night related to the upcoming U.S. presidential election, but it wasn't the presidential nominees who were facing off, it was the vice presidential nominees. Incumbent Vice President Mike Pence representing the Republican Party, U.S. Senator Kamala Harris representing the Democratic Party. Like the presidential debates, last night's event was sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. It was scheduled to take place at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, Utah. The moderator was Susan Page of USA Today, and the plan was that the 90-minute debate would be broken up into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. The coronavirus pandemic was an expected topic, and social distancing measures were on the stage. The candidates were seated at least 12 feet apart. Plexiglass panels were set up between them. And as far as debate strategy goes, one political analyst put it like this: candidates in a vice presidential debate have a straightforward series of goals. Portray their running mates as the best choice for voters, defend their own records, and attack the records of the opposing candidates. We got a glimpse of the candidates' different approaches during their party conventions over the summer when they were officially nominated for the job of vice president.
Make no mistake, the road ahead is not easy. We may stumble. We may fall short. But I pledge to you that we will act boldly and deal with our challenges honestly. We will speak truths, and we will act with the same faith in you that we ask you to place in us.
In these challenging times, our country needs a president who believes in America, who believes in the boundless capacity of the American people to meet any challenge, defeat any foe, and defend the freedoms we hold dear. And with President Donald Trump in the White House for 4 more years, and with God's help, we will make America great again. Again.
Next up on the campaign calendar, a second presidential debate on October 15th. But that may depend on President Donald Trump's coronavirus recovery. He's now back at the White House after being treated last weekend at Walter Reed National Medical Center. The president says he's feeling great and looking forward to the debate. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden says if the president still has COVID, the 2 candidates shouldn't have a debate. We'll keep you posted. 10-second trivia. Which of these U.S. founding fathers never served as president? James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, or Thomas Jefferson? Benjamin Franklin was an ambassador, a governor, the first postmaster general, but never a president. Quote, for years, the U.S. Postal Service has been losing billions of dollars. Now, that's true now, but the quote came from a line I wrote in 2013. At that time, the reasons included email, fewer letters were being sent, a series of bad business decisions, and a controversial retirement fund it has, which you'll hear more about in a minute. But today, increased package deliveries and a steady stream of first-class mail are bringing in large amounts of revenue for the Postal Service. But the agency is still losing money, and some observers are concerned about whether it'll be able to handle a larger number of mail-in ballots for the upcoming election as more people avoid polling places out of coronavirus concerns. Here's a closer look at some more factors in the Postal Service's struggles.
The U.S. Postal Service can trace its history back to 1775, when the Second Continental Congress appointed Benjamin Franklin as Postmaster General to help ensure that free ideas and information could be shared throughout the colonies. It was not intended to be a profitable business.
It's about service, correct? Not about profit.
Today, there's no other government agency or business that operates like the Postal Service. First of all, the U.S. Postal Service receives 0 tax dollars for operating expenses. The Postal Service has to use its own revenue from things like stamps and package deliveries to operate, although it does receive indirect government subsidies, such as having a protected monopoly on delivering first-class mail. Secondly, the Postal Service doesn't set its own prices like FedEx and UPS do. Congress sets them. But by law, USPS has to deliver to every home in the country, no matter how remote or unprofitable that delivery may be. Case in point, to this day, the Postal Service delivers mail to a small group of people living in the Grand Canyon by mule. This leads to the third problem. The U.S. Postal Service has been losing money for over a decade.
Without change, our losses will only increase in the years to come.
In 2019, the Postal Service reported $71 billion in revenue, but its expenses totaled almost $80 billion. If you dig into those numbers, though, the picture becomes a bit complicated. In 2006, Congress passed the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. It requires the U.S. Postal Service to pre-fund 75 years worth of retirees' health care benefits in the span of about 10 years. Before this law went into effect, the Postal Service was reporting profits. So, the U.S. Postal Service is subject to the congressional oversight of other federal agencies without any of the taxpayer funding. It has the profit-driven business model of a private company, without the freedom to make financial decisions for itself.
Next up, efforts to keep COVID-19 out of professional sports. The games in America came back before the fans were allowed to. And in addition to empty arenas, the National Basketball Association and Major League Baseball are playing their playoff games in a bubble, meaning selected stadiums away from where the team's home courts and fields are, measures designed to decrease the team's exposure to coronavirus. So far this season, the National Football League has postponed 2 games because of COVID-19, and the NFL just announced that 11 players and 15 staff members tested positive last week. And its chief medical officer says all options are still on the table as far as more postponements or a possible pause in games are concerned. CNN 10 contributor Chris James reports on how the league has tightened its rules on measures like masks. Chris.
Hey Carl, if there's one thing that without a doubt connects you to me and each and every viewer watching right now, it's the fact that we've all had to adjust to a new normal during this confusing and sometimes scary era of coronavirus. The National Football League is no exception, and this week they've made some significant changes in the hopes of preventing further outbreaks. On Monday, all 32 NFL teams were notified of new, much stricter COVID-19 protocols. The changes were announced in a memo from Commissioner Roger Goodell obtained by CNN. If it's discovered that club personnel or players aren't following the rules, the discipline could include heavy fines, the adjustment or loss of draft choices, and even the forfeit of a game, which could create a major competitive imbalance. And get this, they're even implementing a new video monitoring system. They'll be using this technology to make sure that everyone is complying with the league's mandate that team personnel wear personal protective equipment, PPE, at all times while in a team facility or traveling. This comes as New England Patriots QB Cam Newton tested positive for the virus, and at least 20 separate COVID cases were reported by the Tennessee Titans. And the NFL is already putting its money where its mouth is. They've issued fines against 10 members of the Las Vegas Raiders, a league source told CNN. The fines come 1 week after the 10 Raiders players failed to wear face coverings while attending a fundraiser hosted by tight end Darren Waller. Waller was fined $30,000 while his 9 teammates had to pay $15,000 each. Back to you, Carl.
In a neighborhood of Boulder, Colorado, a female bear and her 2 cubs were recently caught and relocated. And in their mad dash back to freedom, the camera was the casualty. Boom. Wildlife officials say bears get pretty bold this time of year, looking for food anywhere they can get it as they prepare to hibernate. These were safely and successfully relocated, and the video is a reminder to stay out of their way. It's not really polarizing advice, and you don't need to be spectacled to bear leave. There's a real danger if you Cody-actually find claws to get face to muzzle with such a very real threat, the outcome could be grisly. Wakefield High School gets today's shout out, the students watching in Arlington, Virginia. I don't personally choose the schools we mention on the shout out, though I would love to take credit. But for a chance to get your school, city, and state mentioned on CNN 10, start at our website, cnn10.com. Click on this here link. That will take you to our official YouTube channel. And if you subscribe and comment on our most recent show, the most recent edition of CNN 10, we might be announcing you tomorrow. I'm Coral Azus.